Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I want to give people a couple of minutes to tune in before I get started. I saw an article on the Washington Post without fear. So I want to give people a couple of minutes. Yeah, so I saw an article on the Washington Post, and I want to share this article with you all. Shout out to Hollow Ninja 10. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your support. So we'll get started in a couple of minutes. I just want to give people time to tune in before we get started. I see that we have a few people watching, so I'm going to just get right into it. Let me share my screen. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about tonight. This first video will be about this terrorist who was arrested. And I'm going to read this article, segments of it to you all, and then provide my brief commentary. So I was on Facebook and I came across this article about this terrorist, a white nationalist who planned mass terror attacks, who was recently arrested. This guy was a U.S. Coast Guard lieutenant, a self-identified white nationalist, as reported in the Washington Post. He was arrested after federal investigators uncovered a cache of weapons and ammunition in his Maryland home. So this is not too far from the nation's capital. The man's name is Christopher Paul Hasson, and I'm going to show you his image right here. Here's another article from Heavy. There's a photograph of him here, so that we'll know exactly who we're talking about. So it said that he called for focused violence. He wanted to establish a white homeland, and he was dreaming of a way to kill almost every last person on earth. That's what this article says. And some of the targets included Nancy Pelosi. And he also did some searches on the internet where, he was trying to find the best place in DC to see Congress people. And he searched the Supreme Court justices as well, like to find out if they're protected. This article also pointed out how the government said that he intended to murder innocent civilians on a scale rarely seen in this country. Now, he's been charged with illegal weapons and drugs, but the government, according to this article, is saying that those charges are the proverbial tip of the iceberg, meaning there will be more charges against him. He allegedly planned to spark chaos and destruction. And it says that he was obsessed with neo-fascist, neo-Nazi views. So just bear with me as I go through the article. This article talks about how he was working at the U.S. Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C. since 2016. It talks about how he served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 1988 through 1993, and in the Army National Guard for about 2 years in the mid-90s. And also it says that he was studying a 1,500-page manifesto written by a right-wing terrorist who unleashed a terrorist attack in Norway, killing 77 people. Authorities seized 15 firearms, including several long guns and rifles, more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition. And it says that it was found in his cramped basement apartment after they executed a search warrant. They said over the past 2 years, he had made nearly 24 purchases of firearms or related equipment, and made thousands of visits to websites selling weapons and tactical gear. It says that in an email that he drafted in June 2017, he actually contemplated biological attacks and targeting food supplies. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, and he talked about like the protest in Charlottesville. He said he was a man of action, and you can't change people's minds by protesting like that. He talked about how you can change with a little bit of focused violence. You can change things that way. And they said that he created a list of traitors and targets on an Excel spreadsheet. And he made several searches online. He was searching for what if Trump was illegally impeached, where in DC do members of Congress live, civil war if Trump is impeached. So he was doing all these types of searches. It said that in September, he was reprimanded for flashing what some people consider to be a white supremacist sign in the background of a televised interview with another officer. Now I'm going to see if there's some additional information in this heavy article as well about this man before I go into my brief commentary. This article points out that he is a supporter of Donald Trump. And that was kind of alluded to in that first article that I pointed out, where he's doing these searches about what happens if Trump is illegally impeached and all that kind of stuff. And we'll get to that in a second. We're going to talk about the fact that he supports Donald Trump and what that means and the implications of that. And then, he wrote this, according to this particular article from Heavy: no way to counteract without violence. It should push for more crackdown, bringing more people to our side. More blood will have to be spilled to get Whitey off the couch. This is what he's saying. For no amount of blood will be enough. They will die, as will the traitors who actively work towards our demise. So those are some of the things that this guy had to say. I already went through that. I'm going to see if there are some additional points in this article that need to be highlighted before I go on to see what you all are saying in the chat room. Yeah, so I mentioned that already. Yeah, so I'm going to stop there. Links to these articles are in the description box to this video for you all to read at your convenience. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second. Let me check in with you all to see what you all are saying. And then I'm going to proceed into my commentary. Hollow Ninja said people like him ain't all over the news. And Covina Man said, I know that white supremacists will do something crazy if Trump loses in 2020. Yeah, he spells his name differently. It's Hasson, Hassan instead of Hassan. So it's a different spelling. And I need to find out if he is in fact Muslim. I don't think that he is. because that would be unusual for someone to be a Muslim and, a white supremacist at the same time. Let me see what it says. If they have any information about his religious background. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, I don't think that he's Muslim. He's not a Muslim, because it says that, here he refers to the Muslim scum. So he's obviously not a Muslim, and his name is Hassan, not Hassan. So yeah, so I don't think that that's the situation here. But I look forward to getting more information about this case. As there are developments, I will be talking about it. Yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to address that real quick because Fresh and Sassy Plant-Based Living raised that point. Thanks for raising that issue. Shout out to you. Shout out to Skull Island. Shout out to Covina Man, and shout out to Hollow Ninja 10. Thanks for tuning in. So I just want to add a couple of other points before I close this out. First of all, there have been several reports that talk about how white supremacists are the biggest threat to internal security in the United States. They're the biggest terrorist threat in the United States. They pose a greater threat than these foreign-based terrorist groups. And I want to share with you a couple of other articles right now to bring home this point. So if you can bear with me for a second. Just bear with me 1 second. Just want to pull up these articles real quick. Just bear with me a second. Because there's a report here that breaks down the numbers that I think that it's worthwhile to show you all. Yeah, here it is. All right, so let me share my screen real quick. Yeah, so here's an article that's in the New York Times Magazine, and it talks about how white supremacists have killed far more people since September 11th than any other category of domestic extremists. It says the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism has reported that 71% of extremist-related fatalities in the United States between 2008 and 2017 were committed by members of the far right or white supremacist movements. And Islamic extremists were responsible for just 26% of those types of acts. So that just establishes the fact that these white supremacist groups are a greater threat to the American people than these foreign-based terrorists. And here's the title to this particular article. When I get a chance, I'll post this in the description box as well so that you can read it for yourself. And it talks about how the U.S. law enforcement failed to see the threat of white nationalism. And every day we're reminded of this threat. In this recent incident, where these police and law enforcement uncovered all these weapons. You see these weapons right here. Look at all those guns that this man had. All those firearms, all those weapons and stuff, guns and bullets. This man was ready to declare war. And the fact of the matter is that the Trump administration did not even view white supremacists as a threat to national security. In fact, this article pointed out how the Trump administration wanted to rename a U.S. government program designed to counter all violent ideologies and just focus solely on Islamic extremists. That's what they wanted to do. They de-emphasized the need to investigate white supremacist groups. And this is nothing new. I mean, this has happened for a very long time. While the FBI was cracking down on Black liberation organizations, while the FBI was cracking down on civil rights groups, those white supremacists were allowed to terrorize Black communities, blow up Black churches, kill Black civil rights workers. They were allowed to do that. So this is nothing new. This is a continuation of this situation. And this is, after all, an administration that got into office by deliberately pandering to white supremacists. So it is no surprise that this administration would not view fighting white supremacy as a priority, especially given the fact that this man is a white supremacist and panders to white supremacists. This man had white supremacists working for his campaign and also working for his administration. Somebody like a Stephen Bannon worked for him, his chief political strategist at one point. An open white supremacist working in the White House. Somebody working for a publication that's known as the voice of the alt-right movement. These are the people that Donald Trump surrounds himself by. We have to remember that it was Donald Trump that basically defended those racists in Charlottesville by talking about how they're very fine people on both sides. Talking about how basically saying that these people were fine people, these damn terrorists, these damn Nazis, these damn Klansmen. This is a man who was reluctant to call out David Duke after David Duke openly supported him. This is a man whose administration is supported by these white supremacists. It's no coincidence that those people are running around, those Nazis are running around with those Make America Great Again hats, because he is speaking their language. He is playing their tune, so they love him. It's no coincidence that you had a Richard Spencer and his alt-right group celebrating the election of Donald Trump by using Nazi salutes. That's not a coincidence. This man panders to these racist people. It is no coincidence that the KKK actually took out an ad endorsing his election, because he speaks their language. He is helping them and promoting them, with this whole anti-immigrant nonsense, which is really a push to prevent what these white supremacists call white genocide. That is their whole push against immigration. That is their motivation, and Donald Trump panders to that. And it is no coincidence that this terrorist who had all these weapons and planned to kill members of Congress, it is no coincidence that this man is a Trump supporter. These are the kind of people that support Donald Trump. Extremists, racists. He fans the flames of hatred with all his speeches, encouraging violence against those he disagrees with, giving these white supremacists all kinds of passes. These white supremacists, this terrorists, are nothing but Donald Trump's bastard children, because he encourages these people. He has created an environment that is conducive for this type of activity. With his venomous type of rhetoric that he uses against people, how he demonized those people he disagrees with. You all remember a few months ago, there was another terrorist who planted these bombs and stuff like that, who was a Trump supporter. A lot of these extremists support this man, and it's no coincidence. So if violence happens, if one of these white supremacists are able to get away with this, with one of these terrorist attacks, blood will be on Donald Trump's hands, because he not only fueled the fire of this type of hatred, through this hateful rhetoric that this man has promoted. This man has also weaken law enforcement by not emphasizing the need to investigate these types of groups. So if something happens, blood is on his hands. Blood is all on his hands. I mean, we got all these examples of terrorist attacks that have happened. You know, Dylan Roof. We had the situation where that man was at that Kroger's place killing people, shot 2 black people, innocent black people minding their own business. We had a situation where, you know, time and time again, you got these terrorist situations. Again, I told you about the guy that planted those bombs. So this is a real important issue that has to be addressed. You know, the federal government needs to do more to prevent these types of acts from happening. And it's but for the grace of God that they were able to stop this particular act, this particular terrorist plot. Who knows how many people could have been killed? And my question is, how is this man able to acquire all these weapons? All these, we had an arsenal for a small army. No citizen needs that many weapons and stuff. That tells you a lot about the gun control laws that we need in place. But we know that a lot of the people in Congress are bought and paid for by the NRA, so they won't, you know, enforce any kind of real gun control laws or anything. So yeah, it's crazy, man. So let's see what people are saying before I sign out. And also, I want to let you all know that right after this, I'm going to do another live stream about the Jussie Smollett situation. There have been some further developments in that case that I want to address. So let me see what people are saying. So Angela says that Hasson, yeah, it's probably Hassan instead of Hassan, is an Ireland or Scottish type of name. It's a derivative. So let's see. Yeah, these white supremacists are the real terrorists. And like, this is one of the rare situations where they actually label one of these white supremacists as a terrorist. Usually they're all reluctant to label them as such. You know, they call them everything under the sun except for a terrorist. You know, so when they kill large numbers of people, you know, they just call them, you know, a white supremacist, or, you know, in these mass shootings or whatever, they will say that they're mentally ill and stuff like that. Rarely do they call white people terrorists. And this is one of those rare situations. Yeah, and he was going to kill like all these different people that are against Donald Trump. You know, all these people. He was going to kill members of Congress, U.S. Supreme Court justices, etc., man. And my question is like, you know, are we prepared for something like this? Like if there were some kind of race war, like what would be the state of black people? Because we're not training and using any kind of weapons. We don't even think in that kind of mindset or whatever. And I think it's time that we learn to defend ourselves. We educate ourselves. We train ourselves for self-defense. And that's only intelligent. There's nothing radical or extreme about defending yourself. It's a God-given right. It's a legal right. And it's responsible and intelligent for one to know how to defend themselves. And it's high time for us to train to defend ourselves. Yeah, so I agree with you, Robert Bowie, in that respect. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. I want to thank you all for your support. Again, I'll be back on here with another live stream talking about some issues dealing with Jussie Smollett. There have been some developments. Also, again, I want to remind people that my challenge to these ADOS people remains open. You know, I would debate them anytime. I noticed that a lot of people did videos in response to me completely distorting what my message was. You know, I'll welcome a debate with any of these people. And I may actually call into Yvette Carnell's show or to the Antonio Moore's show or whatever. I just need to find out exactly what time they have their shows so that I can raise these some of the points. I know that they only have people on for a second. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that to your attention before I sign out. And with that, I'll say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you for your support. I will see you in a couple of minutes.